Have you ever bought a car and then walked out of there realizing you got massaged and messed over and you end up buying something that you didn't even want? There was features in there that you didn't ask for. Or was it, did you walk into a dealership, you test drove a car, and of course they dazzled you and bamboozled you with multiple different vehicles, different keys, and you thought you were getting something, you walked out of there with something totally different? Or did you, in fact, one of those unfortunate customers that actually talked to the dealership, they massaged you to build trust, and it ended up telling you that they had an affiliation with the military, made you feel like they were definitely trustworthy, and then they pulled a quick and fast one out from under you? Well, you're not alone if that's happening. I know it's definitely happened to people. I know people have reached out to me, and I can't help but share. It's a passion of mine. It's hard enough with the cost of living, inflation, and everybody wants to take that dollar out of your pocket. We just can't trust anyone anymore. It feels that way. But I'm here to share some of those unfortunate scenarios where people have been hosed. I've had received emails, comments, and people have definitely experienced the quick and fast one. But did you realize not only myself, the FTC is trying to get a hold of this, and fortunately in 2024, they promised to save customers and car buyers an estimated 72 million hours of time wasted negotiating or showing up to it for a deal that went bad, and even an estimated $3.4 billion. And yes, welcome back my superfluous seeds of sunshine. Let's get into it. And what CARS, the acronyms CARS stands for. That's derived from FTC, which actually stands for Combating Automotive Retail Scams. It's real, it's alive, and it's well. And like I said, I've received emails, conversation with lots of you folks, viewers, and sadly, people are just getting rooked. And it's bad enough, definitely, to pay $80,000 or $90,000 for a truck and all the markups and, of course, all the market adjustment fees that we've been subject to in the last couple of years. It's bad enough they try to quickly find some other quick and fast scams that have unfortunately pulled a rug out from under you or the wool over your eyes. So let's talk about some of the big ones. The first one that I've heard about is the bait and switch. The old infamous bait and switch. Believe it or not, in today's day and age, it's actually happening, where you definitely see an advertised price. You see this new Ford F-150 with all the bells and whistles, a Lariat, and I've seen this, where it actually was advertised for $48,000, in which case you go down there thinking, hey, I'm going to get my hands on that. I'm ready to pull a trigger on this and buy this truck new. You go down there, you and you ask the dealer and you say, hey, I saw you advertised this brand new 2023 for $48,500. And they say, oh, let me look into that for you. They go away for a few minutes, and this has actually happened, and it's personally happened to me. The only difference is I've been able to pull it together, pull my socks up, and walk out the door after I find out the fact. When that guy comes back, or that salesperson comes back, and they say, you know what, I was just talking to a sales manager, and they said it was just sold. So sorry about that. That was the last one. Or they'll give you some other noise and nonsense, like, yeah, sorry, no longer available, or that deal expired 2 days ago, or there's a host of other reasons and nonsense that they're feeding you. That's called the bait and switch. They tell you have something, but then they don't actually have it when you show up. But then they actually point you over here. Look, but we have this great unit right here. Well, it's not a Lariat, it's an XLT, but we've added these extra widgets, and all of a sudden that truck is coming up for $75,000 or $70,000. But I want to pay $48,000. Well, that one's gone, unfortunately, folks. But we have this one here. It's a better truck. It's got the nicer wheel package on it, and it's actually $70,000. That's quick bait and switch, where they dazzle you with nonsense, tell you they've got something, then they quickly shuffle you over to something that's a lot more expensive or something that has a much more bigger profit margin. And that, unfortunately, has taken a lot of buyers by surprise. It's a sad state of affairs. I see it, I hear it, and unfortunately, this is one of those things that seems to catch people by the short and curlies and gets them into something that they didn't sign up for, and they end up spending a lot more money. Instead of paying $400 a month, now all of a sudden they're stuck paying $700 a month, and something that might even be a lower grade vehicle. It's just a sad state of affairs. So don't get snookered on that. And the FTC and the CARS is definitely out to try to catch some of these shady dealer operations. And another one I've heard from a lot of customers, I can't tell you how many people have actually reported this to me. And it's actually bum fees or bad fees or false fees or just junk that there's no real tangible value to it. For example, I've heard of people getting rooked with nitrogen-filled tires for $500. Keep your nitrogen. I don't want it. As a matter of fact, once it leaks out, I put regular air in there. It doesn't matter. Or the next tire rotation, and you're not paying for it. And no amount of nitrogen to fill up 4 tires is possibly worth that money. I also recently I was going and I actually test drove this brand new, no, it wasn't brand new, it was slightly used Jeep, and it was actually a Wrangler, and it was a Rubicon, nice little unit. It was a Nardo gray unit, manual gearbox, definitely a keeper for sure. And when I came in, I said, let's talk about it. All of a sudden they hit me with this noise and nonsense. They come up with this paperwork, the quick 4-square method. They definitely nailed me, or tried to nail me, with some things like, oh, glass etching and AMVIC fees. Well, you shouldn't pay for AMVIC. They said, well, we all have to pay for that. You have to pay for that. I'm not paying for that, is basically the way I said it. Glass etching, that's a joke. I didn't ask for that. And I definitely don't believe in AMVIC. That's a cost of doing business, because that's essentially the Alberta, well, it's essentially a warranty for doing business to make sure that the vehicle's up to spec. Every state, every province has their own. Ontario, AMVIC for Alberta, and definitely US has their own different, one-offs here and there. I'm not paying for this AMVIC fees. I'm not paying for glass etching, nitrogen-filled tires. And a lot of them are trying to pitch you on this garbage. What do we have here? This is a key fob. And I'm not going to pay for key fob protection. That's a joke. Most of the time, it's just a battery. And a lot of times, if you have to replace the key fob entirely, it's going to cost you a lot of money anyway. They're rarely ever going to eat that cost. And they might change a little board or something, but they'll usually, what you end up doing after a 3-year time frame, because there's usually a limited time on that, is they'll just basically ended up, you'll run out of time. They might put 1 or 2 batteries in it for you, and you end up paying hundreds of dollars for that fee. Nitrogen's a joke, glass etching's a joke. Even things like paint protection film and so on are not great value buying at the dealer. So if they're slapping it on there and they're trying to throw that in the line item on your bill or on your invoice, say, no, I didn't sign up for that. And then you basically take that vehicle, do it outside third party. You're definitely going to get a much better deal there. So all these extra fees, did you hear that story? I shared that a while back about this older gentleman, and he took his daughter. They had their heart set on this Hyundai car, and they went in there, and Hyundai said, no, you got to pay this. They had all this whole host of issues and extras. And these extras added up to about $6,000 or $7,000 on top of the price of the vehicle. And they're all this noise and just this massive garbage that has no real tangible value. And they basically took their business elsewhere and went back to Hyundai and said, what kind of business are you running here? And Hyundai Canada washed their hands and said, well, every dealer is independent and operates in their own way. But as soon as that starts to happen, and you see all these extras lined in there, walk away or negotiate and say, I didn't pay that. I'm not paying that because that's not what I signed up for. So there's lots of those dealers doing that yet. And this CARS acronym by FTC is there to try to get in the way and curb some of these, these crusty behaviors. So you definitely want to be aware of that. They're always trying to slide in some quick and dirties in there for you. Another really horrible one that they're doing is actually taking advantage of a lot of people. The military. The military does get special provisions and concessions. I mean, they definitely are out there fighting for our rights and, for freedoms and all of those things that we take for granted. A lot of people take for granted. They're out there fighting every single day. And as such, they definitely should be, should get some of those special privileges. And they do. They get some of the repossession protection on some of that. And of course, they do have other challenges. They get relocations often. And it just makes life a little bit challenging for a lot of the military people who have to constantly restage at different locations in the country sometimes. And with that, their true affiliations means that some manufacturers, some dealers, some vendors might actually look after some of that. But the worst part is you get all these shady dealers that say, and they try to massage and make you feel like you're a part of the family, and they say, yeah, we're affiliated with the military, some of the military incentives, if you will. And in doing so, we're looking out for you in the best interest. If you're a military member, we'll take care of you. And in the meantime, a lot of them aren't affiliated, and they're just using that as a means and a tactic to try to build and incorporate extra trust. And in the meantime, they're shivving you on the back end with some bad tactics on negotiations. They're not giving you the greatest deals, and they're actually using that greasiness to actually work against you and build up that trust. And I've heard so many deals and arrangements where military members have actually found out later from, regular people that have bought vehicles and said they've actually got a much worse deal. You definitely want to question their integrity. You want to question, some of their credentials and whether they are truly affiliated. And you definitely want to spot check and do some shopping around. Even if you're a military member, don't take these people for granted because they're using sometimes, these special arrangements as a leverage to get a, even a greasier deal than they might against a general population. So definitely shop around. And before you settle, make sure that you've had those checks and balances done at a few different dealers so you know what you're getting and you're getting a right deal. But those people are definitely trying to play some greasy games on military members. Another one that I can't tell you enough, I've heard this enough many times. They say we've got a quoted amount, we know what the tax are of that state, province, country, whatever, and then they end up signing, and all of a sudden the amount, the total, is substantially different than what they actually believed. Even doing manual calculation, MSRP, have the recycle costs for tires, levy, taxes, and it should be this, but yet it's this. Where do those costs come from? In some cases, dealers are hiding costs, bearing extras, not being totally upfront about interest charges, or some of the other extras that we've mentioned, some line items that they've buried in there and they've included. Again, we've talked about what we've seen in the last couple of years related to market adjustment fees and other factors that you didn't really take into account, and they weren't clear on that. And a lot of these dealers aren't necessarily being all that, they're being quite scrupulous, if we're being honest. And so you have to ask for the out-the-door price. Right up front, out-the-door price. What is your out-the-door price? That includes taxes, extras, fees, the whole 9 yards, MSRP, all in. Out the door. What is that price? Because when you know what that out-the-door price is, then you at least have an idea. You can reverse calculate, reverse engineer what your monthly payments are, go to the bank, maybe seek out some other forms of financing, or at least check with your bank, and then you can compare it to what the vendors are offering up. Because let's face it, right now, banks' rates are kind of high because, obviously we're talking about the reserves, Bank of Canada, and so on and so forth, aren't necessarily offering up the best deals. So sometimes these car manufacturers are actually offering up you better incentives rates, but make sure that you're shopping around. Check the banks first, then check, the lender that might be associated or affiliated with that particular dealer, and make sure that aligns. And just make sure that the out-the-door price is what you agreed on, and that you're not being surprised. As soon as you're surprised, you've probably paid somewhere something extra that you don't want. And the FTC and CARS is trying to get all over this, slice and underhand this and undermine these operations by some of these greasy tactics and dealers. And this is still happening. It's bad enough that we're paying as much as we are for cars and food and groceries and all of that. I mean, there's people, like I said, I can't even, it breaks my heart when I hear an older couple that's retired and they overpaid somewhere, or when I see people living under the bridge because they finally ran out of their last dollar and they couldn't afford rent. And now it's heartbreaking. And any one of us, there's people, they say we're within, $200 of living on the street, or within 2 weeks worth of pay of living on the street. I mean, it's heartbreaking. A lot of people live outside their means, but that's not what this is about. The fact remains is we need every buying advantage that we can get. And I hope this helps share some of the insights, what some of these greasy dealers are doing. So if you see any of these tactics, I'd really question their integrity, and don't just walk away, run away. And with all of that said, a little bit ago, right there, you want to check that video. I actually featured a video of the latest car market trends, what's going on, and what you can anticipate for 2024. Hope to see each and every one of you on the next one. We'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.